Oh, yeah. Okay, so hey, it's Ella back with Em Dee on a woman's podcast. Um, we had a comment from Crescent um, Crescent Moon
Yeah.
that wanted to address, and if you want to just go ahead, you can, I guess, read out the first part of that comment, and then we'll talk about each part that you want to discuss, I guess.
Okay, yeah. Um, so this is from Crescent Moon. Um, she starts, she starts, I hope Emily has, for starters, rethought her opinion on abortion. She said she thought it should be illegal after 6 weeks. Restricting abortion access is a prime way for men to control women's lives and bodies. So right away, like, I don't remember saying that it should be illegal after 6 weeks. I don't think that's something I would ever say. That's never been my opinion. I don't think that laws should be dictating any kind of medical thing in regards to like females in any way. But if I did say that, then I fully retract that. I think what I remember talking about was just sort of development over the first 6 weeks. And I think I was trying to mention that ideally, more so it should be on a social level. Like if an abortion or the same procedure is also used for miscarriages as well, like it should ideally it would be within the first 6 weeks because of development. And
Yeah.
that would be an issue of accessibility. I mean, in my own life, I've seen women in my life and girls in my life, they schedule an abortion and it gets postponed or they don't have access to even make an appointment. So like I was sort of trying to speak for more of a like on a social level and a like sort of healthcare level, like it should just be more easily accessible. Um, and then like on a personal level, like ideally you would want that done in 6 weeks within the first 6 weeks, but nothing to do with the law. Like I don't think it should be dictated by laws because that's when it gets messy and people die, people get harmed, women get harmed, and it is like I agree that it's just a kind of exercising control over women's bodies. So that's pretty much
Well,
it.
great. Thank you for clarifying that because that was obviously distressing for some people, but I pretty
It was
much
pressing for
agree with
me
you. Yeah.
too.
No,
Yeah.
you sent me a message. You're like, I need to talk about this, Alyssa. Let's go. I was like, all right, we'll do it. But no, yeah, it's I agree that like the earlier you can get the termination done, the better for the woman, right? Definitely, invariably. But it's a matter of accessibility. Like some women don't even know they're pregnant, like at 6 weeks. Like I personally
Yeah.
know when I get pregnant right away. Like I don't even have to miss my period and I know I'm pregnant. But um I know other people that don't find out they're pregnant till they're 3 or 4 months along. Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah,
that's
same.
another thing,
I
right? Like learning
Yeah,
about your body as a woman is important. We don't there's
yeah,
some women who are so out of touch with their own bodies they don't even know they're pregnant. So like that's regulating that kind of thing could make access and all that stuff really detrimental to those women as well.
yeah. And there's all kinds of complications that can happen over the term of a pregnancy anyway. And I was 17 and I thought I just had I was having sickness, like I couldn't keep food down. I thought I had like acid reflux or something. And
Oh,
it was after the 6 week mark. But it ended up being a miscarriage. So
yeah.
um okay, so that's pretty much that. And so the next one I want to address more, I'll talk about, where I was coming from. And then I also want to bring up just like something I didn't bring up about the manosphere that I noticed.
Okay.
Um, so Crescent Moon says, honestly, this video is bewildering to me because for a while she had very anti-feminist videos and made at least one anti-Semitic comment and more than once featured an alt-right man on her channel. It definitely didn't seem like a black ops mission. From what I've heard of this video, she's not addressing her anti-feminist positions, which I find really bizarre and suspicious. She's talking like she was just interacting with MRAs out of curiosity, but it sure seemed to me she was agreeing with them on anti-feminist, anti-Semitic, Jewish conspiracy stuff in her videos for several months. I'm not the only one who noticed this because I remember a discussion of this a few weeks ago on another YouTube channel, and I apologize if I missed this being addressed in this video. Yeah. So I was like involved in the Manosphere, and I mean, I was not in my right mind in this regard for a few months, so I will, just put that disclaimer on there. I dealt with a lot of anger, and I definitely was like seeing their point of view, and there's some points of contention that I have, but it's more on like a discussion level within feminism. But it's as far as like, I mean, at one point, like I was kind of believing, because they do have this kind of conspiracy that feminists are trying, like, are part of the downfall of Western civilization, or they're like trying to trick people or something like that, and that ties into the whole Jewish conspiracy thing. And I was watching Owen Benjamin, who I think is who she might be referring to. And like Owen Benjamin appealed to me because he's anti-porn and he spoke out against the transgender stuff. I don't think I made any like anti-Semitic comments. Like I can't see myself actually agreeing with the Jewish conspiracy stuff and making that claim. But I was replying, although I didn't really specify it in my videos. I was replying to a particular person who had been like frequently commenting on my channel, and he was sending me lots of these like Jewish conspiracy videos, like these really complex ones. Yeah, so it was this guy named Joel, but I haven't seen him around in a while. I don't know, but I think I blocked him, ended up blocking him. But I think what I did was I acknowledged that they're noticing a pattern. So like they look at the names of slave owners from like American slavery, or they look at like pedophiles and predators in Hollywood, and then they notice a lot of like Hebrew Jewish last names, and so I think I acknowledged that they notice a pattern. And I did say some anti-feminist things for a while. That's when I was like trying to appeal to this like one scumbag who I'm completely done with and cut off finally. That took a while. So I'll admit that, although I completely retract all of that as well. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, that's a big thing in the Manosphere. Like I always brought up Andrea Dworkin when I would discuss things, because I'm a big fan of Andrea Dworkin, and she talked about being Jewish and that being like part of her issues and stuff, and that's in feminism. But yeah, I would bring up Andrea like when discussing things and like looking into like Manosphere content and stuff like that, red pill content in particular. Like I would, and just talking with these fellows, and sometimes I'd just bring her up out of nowhere, but I'm a big fan of hers. And like, so one thing that they like to do, because they believe in this Jewish conspiracy, and the way that I look at it is like they blame everything but themselves. Like it's just overwhelmingly obvious that it's like a lot of men, women who go along with it in this kind of culture of necromantic masculinity, where they want to destroy the planet and just destroy women in this for the sake of excessive materialism and domination. That's kind of my analysis ultimately. And so they focus, they find patterns, and then that's their MO. So they use those patterns with this Jewish conspiracy interpretation. Yeah, and then you get into like like Owen Benjamin jokes about it, but I've seen some of them like they'll be like, well, what if Hitler was just a guy who was fed up with stuff and got carried away? Like that's when they start talking about that kind of stuff. But in terms of Dworkin, like she herself was Jewish. I think she talked. I haven't read much about that part, but I think she talked about that, and I know that there's other feminists who have been Jewish, and that's been a part of their experience as far as talking about how they've been discriminated against and oppression they've dealt with. And so they make that, they notice that pattern too. So they'll do the same thing with feminists. They'll find all the Jewish feminists and say, look, they're all Jewish. And then this is, feminism taking down Western civilization or indoctrinating other women kind of thing. And yeah, so that's a big thing too. I think when you talk to most of them, depending on who you are, like I guess if you're a woman, I mean, I think they're going to initially start out with like dating and marriage and procreation, and then if you keep talking to them, that's when you get to the Jewish conspiracy stuff, and of course racism is in there.
That's what the next thing I was going to ask you is that, like, I guess the Manosphere is predominantly white and racist.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's tons of you know, men of color in there, black men, you know, they're all in, you know, but I mean it's you know, it's the alt-right, so that's gonna be there. You know, just all of the stuff that goes with the alt-right, because you know, I shouldn't even say the Manosphere anymore, like it is just part of the alt-right. And I mean, they definitely love using the N-word like it's some badge of honor. And of course, their excuse is like, well, you can't say it, but they like saying it a little too much, in my opinion. You know, like it's you know, it's ridiculous. I can't stand it when people, especially men in that world, like use freedom of speech to like just say vulgar or racist things, and then they wear it like a badge of fucking honor. It's the same when they think they're like heroes because they can cook food or clean something, you know.
So on a shirt.
Yeah, it's fucking so disappointing. It's like, these are our grown men, you know, these are our people, and this is like what they're proud of. I mean, it's extremely disappointing. Like, yeah.
Okay, so I know there was more to that comment. It was much longer, wasn't it? Was that what is there more stuff you want to talk about?
Yeah, that was the big bulk of it. The last thing she said was, clearly everyone can change their mind, but it would be nice if Emily addressed this big change of heart instead of acting like she was just curious about the Manosphere and acknowledged her past misogynist, bigoted content. Yeah. Oh, yeah. She replied. So she said, well, I mean, I don't think I got to say everything. Like, I went into the Manosphere, like before I went in, I was like, okay, like thinking about, you know, how I'm might be affected, and then, you know, I was like kind of having developing a personal relationship with one of them at the time. So yeah, like I did change a little bit. I acted way out of character. So it wasn't like I'm just curious. But I mean, it fucking screwed me. So I got my comeuppance and I got out of it. But yeah, so I'll admit that. Let's see. But she went on to say, it's also interesting to hear about her very caring, compassionate mother and how that's influenced her to understand her feelings, something those of us with CPTSD, childhood trauma, struggle with. Em has repeatedly mocked people whining about childhood trauma. I definitely want to address that, and claimed adult trauma is worse. Science says childhood trauma is the most. I don't think that that's exactly what I said, or that's exactly what I meant. What my issue is that, you know, there's an overemphasis in people's understanding on childhood trauma, and there's so many people going through like adult trauma, and people like think that you're like kind of degrade adults for like being traumatized, and like say you're having a temper tantrum, stop acting like a child. Like that's something that I've noticed. And I don't think I said that adult trauma is worse. I just think that if you go through it in childhood and you don't have to deal with it afterwards, like you have that time in childhood to learn and grow, although that doesn't always happen. Mm-hmm. And then but if you don't go through like enough trauma where it affects you in that PTSD kind of way, or CPTSD kind of way, and then you're an adult and people are expecting you to act a certain way and like know how to deal with trauma, like, and you know, there's not that understanding that people are more understanding of children acting out than they are adults. I think that's what I meant to say. And I don't really think one is worse than the other. Like I don't play that game with trauma or oppression that much, because
Well,
you know,
that's the trauma Olympics and the oppression Olympics.
yeah, yeah, I don't like, and I don't see how science could say that childhood trauma is the most damaging. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like even a social scientific claim, like that, because that's like a really subjective idea, like most damaging of all. That doesn't make sense to me.
I think
Even yeah,
the like uh, neurologically, it might be the most damaging because it's trauma on an undeveloped brain, so it could have probably the most like exponential negative effect, right? Whereas trauma on a like fully developed brain can only affect that developed brain so far, right? Whereas like I guess trauma on like an undeveloped baby brain could probably turn someone into a psychopath. You know what I mean?
oh yeah, I could see that, but I think my issue with that is just like I'm extremely skeptical about neurology. Although one thing I would say that's worse about childhood trauma, it's because you are so young, and it's like such a, it's supposed to be like this really protected, like innocent time in your life where you have room to be a child. So that's where I would say it's worse. But I mean, I'm always going to look at these things on a more like philosophical environmental level until neurology gets a little farther along. I think I'm just like kind of a little back and forth when it comes to neurology, but that's my own stubbornness and shit like that. But I mean, it's, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much, because like whether one's worse or not, because it's still going to be a big issue for people to deal with, and people still need to be understanding. I think the big thing with like me complaining about that is that, you know, women get raped,
Mm-hmm.
and so obviously like initially after you get raped, like you're going to be dealing with all that pain and emotion. And if you go seek mental health treatment, I mean, you could be diagnosed with like a mental illness, whereas you're actually just like a mental illness that you don't have, like a
Yeah,
personality
instead
disorder.
of just being
Yeah,
diagnosed traumatized with trauma.
yeah. There's a pattern of like rape victims being diagnosed with like bipolar disorder, and stuff like that, where and they literally were just raped. And it's like, how do you, I don't know, I have a huge problem with mental health in general and diagnosing and just the whole model of it because of those kind of reasons. But yeah, I mean, that's probably, and I think the last thing that I was referring to is, you know, there's a narrative about narcissists where like they became narcissists because of childhood trauma.
Mhm.
Um, and then they never overcame it. And then they get to be narcissists, and I mean fucking awful people in their adulthood, right? And
Mhm.
um you know, I think there's like a point, like if you're traumatized over and over again as an adult, like you're gonna be a little bit more narcissistic in some cases because you're trying to self-protect, but
Yeah.
you might go to see a professional and they're gonna think childhood trauma rather than immediate trauma in some cases. I've just had that experience because like I was, you know, like went to a therapist about things that had happened to me. Like this was in my mid 20s, so kind of a
Mhm.
few years ago. Yeah, like I was dealing with adult trauma, like immediate trauma, like rape, sexual assaults, and some other things. Um, and it was always brought back to like my childhood and my parents, and like that's not what I was dealing with, and it really fucked with me. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so it like, I mean, that's, I think that's what I'm meant to say or was trying to point out, was just like, you know, yeah, like recognize childhood trauma. People are generally not trauma informed even when it comes to childhood trauma, but I want this broader understanding of both. So
Yeah. No,
yeah.
definitely. I think that would you know recommended, and that's a great idea. And I think that yeah, that's you're. I understand what you're saying with like adult trauma and especially female trauma, like female adult trauma, kind of being discounted as like, well, you know, you're already grown up, so you should be able to kind of deal with it. But I mean, no, like there are like trauma fucks with you, so you can't just be expected to deal with it, and it's not fair. So there should be more understanding and more research, and I agree with a lot of what you said about the diagnoses model of psychiatry.
Yeah. And it's this whole thing with trauma between like childhood and adulthood, like it's kind of a new opinion that I'm forming. So I try to explain where my thought process the best I can, but it's kind of a new opinion that I'm forming. So I hope I was like not too like all over the place with it.
Yeah, no, like I said, I pretty much agree with what you said. Makes sense to me.
Okay, cool. But yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, we just need to be respectful and understand both, I think is ultimately the conclusion. Yeah. Well, yeah, that explains that. I was like dying to respond to that comment. I think the thing was like, I know I never said that abortion should be illegal after, like I know I never said it, but maybe I did. I really don't think I would have said that, but that's, I've explained. So.
Well, that's good. I'm happy that you feel better. I'm happy that you got it off your chest, and that you clarified, and that you can move forward with a lighter heart now.
I know.
I know
it's amazing.
Stressful to feel stifled and not be able to get your words out. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I also just generally feel better because I'm out of the manosphere. I don't have to deal with any of those people anymore. And, I'm kind of being welcomed back to, actual like decent people like you and probably everyone on this channel,
Yeah, we're here for you.
Yeah, like it's just, I feel like 1,000% better and just more, calm and like clear, you know.
Well, good for you. I'm happy for you. I'm excited for you to get away on your vacation and have some you time
Yeah.
and healing. And hopefully you'll make some new connections and just feel the sun and sand in your toes and dance and sing and drink alcohol and do all
Yeah.
that fun stuff.
Get some tacos. I want real
Tacos.
Mexican food. I'm excited to try actual Mexican food. I've been dying to try that my whole life. Um, but yeah, I do have like some news about my channel though.
Okay, cool.
So I can't like share too many details. I have kind of a legal thing in the works,
Okay.
but I do plan on uh, bringing my original channel back. Um,
Yes.
yeah, it'll probably be a while, like at least a month longer, I think. But hopefully I can just like pop back on. I would love to be part of the women's podcast. I listened to the Birds of Prey one last night, which I really loved.
Good. Yay. Cool.
Yeah. I like that y'all talked about like Boys Don't Cry. I forgot the girl's name that the movie's based on, but I watched that as a kid. Like,
Oh, yes. With Hilary Swank. Yep.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Definitely. You know what? One day maybe we can arrange the next podcast episode. We can do the four of us because Sarah's on a little hiatus.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, I'd like to. It kind of reignited my passion for like the transgender stuff too, because I was kind of dulling on that for a bit, but I don't know, like listening to like Leah talk and everything, I was like, oh yeah, like it's really fucked up, Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right, deal. So yes, we will have you on the next episode of a woman's podcast with me and Ingrid and Leah. And I will get this up ASAP. And I love you, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks for the chat.
Yeah, I love you too.
And I'm gonna go get this little one back into bed now.
Yeah. Okay, hun.
Thanks,
All right, bye.
Okay, bye.